sport that's been part of every Olympics since 1904. Now 120 years of history looks likely to come to an end after Paris 2024. Amateur boxing is likely to be knocked out of the programme for LA after the latest decision by the sport's governing body. Some might say, who cares? I'm not one of them. I am Michael.
And I'm John, and this is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast. And in this episode, if boxing comes to an end in 2024, could the Russians be back? The IOC is said to be manoeuvring again, despite the ongoing war in the Ukraine.
Max Whitlock will be there in 2024 too, hopefully, after retiring from gymnastics and then reversing that decision after he openly talked about himself as a failure. Now, we have so much respect, as you know, for Max on this podcast. We'll talk the positives of athletes discussing mental health issues.
And with the World Gymnastics in just 1 month's time, we'll have our other news from the Games, the stuff you might not have heard about from the world of Olympic and Paralympic sport, rowing, canoeing, shooting, baseball, basketball, and who will be Scottish Athlete of the Year. Yes, it's been quite a year for hearing Flower of Scotland.
Oh, I've got 1 or 2 suggestions. As ever, if you have, you can get in touch anytime at anythingbutf on Twitter. Message us via Instagram and Facebook. We have a brand new website. We'd love you to go on there and send us a message through the contact us form at anythingbutfooty.com or drop us an email, anythingbutfooty@gmail.com. So let's start then, John, with boxing. You know, I love going and watching my boxing at the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games, but the future of Olympic boxing has been plunged into further doubt as delegates of the sport's world governing body, that is the International Boxing Association, have voted emphatically against permitting a leadership challenge to incumbent President Umar Kremlev. Now, this story has been written by Mark Staniforth. I read it in the Mirror. Mark Staniforth is the Olympics correspondent for the Press Association. And after a 45-minute delay caused by a power cut in the capital of Armenia, which is where this meeting was held, the Russian was back to continue, 106 votes to 36, in a verdict which has been widely assumed then to shatter any hopes of the sport securing a place on the programme for Los Angeles 2028. It's there for Paris as it stands at the minute, though not there, John, for LA 2028.
And it's a huge shame because you think of Anthony Joshua, Joe Joyce, Fraser Clark, Nicola Adams, Lauren Price, people that we've interviewed in the 10 years that we've covered these Olympics and, as you say, Commonwealth Games as well, when you see people coming through. And you want to have amateur boxing in the Olympics, don't you? But I think the phrase, didn't he say that we shouldn't be saying Olympic boxing, should be saying IBA boxing? They're in cloud cuckoo land. These people, aren't they? They're in a bunker. Maybe they're in Putin's bunker, I don't know. But they're in a bunker and they're not realising what on earth is going on. Now, this isn't just the fact that, of course, Kremlev is a Russian, which brings with it a whole lot of question marks as well. But there's the issues from Rio, whether the boxing matches, the bouts were fixed effectively. Some of the decisions there's investigations taking place. But as you know, interviewing Nicola Adams, Michael, so much, that boxing's also done so much for the Olympic and the Olympics in its past history. It's such a shame that this could be the end of it.
Yeah, and we always talk, don't we, about putting athletes at the centre of things and putting the athlete first. And I think certainly for boxing, there is that really well-known, well-trodden path, isn't there, from Olympic success through to professional success. You think of Lennox Lewis off the top of my head. You think of Muhammad Ali, an Olympic gold medalist who, of course,
Audley Harrison.
Or less so in terms of his professional success. I was trying to pick some people that actually won some stuff, but there you go. Well, Audley Harrison, another one who won the Olympic gold medal in Sydney and then went on and had a professional career. And we've seen it with Nicola Adams, who turned professional, and we've seen it with others. And I think certainly when you look at the GB boxing programme, which, you know, I think we should probably hold up as being, you know, an exemplar organisation in the world of boxing, amateur boxing. You look at the way now the GB boxing programme have this initiative where they have some of the professional boxers still involved, still working with the likes of Rob McCracken in Sheffield at the English Institute of Sport. That is the way forward. That's got to be the blueprint, hasn't it, worldwide, to try and bring the amateur boxers, the Olympic boxers through because of the setup, the training, everything that they get certainly in this country, as I mentioned, in Sheffield under Rob and his team there. And then obviously the platform of a Commonwealth Games and Olympic Games and a potential medal there, and then what they can then go on and achieve in the professional game. It works in this country. Maybe that's why we are, so pro keeping it in the games, because it's been such a success here.
Mike, quick question on that. Could they create, because you need a governing body to run the sport. That's what the Olympics requires. So the Olympics actually created their own governing body for the Tokyo amateur boxing, and they're going to do the same with Paris. The IBA are not going to be running it. Could you create, like in professional boxing where you've got lots of different belts, could you create another organisation that could actually challenge International Boxing Association moving forward, and it could then still be in the Olympics?
Well, if any sport can create another organisation
Exactly.
To create competition, then yeah, I don't see why not. Obviously, the Olympic Games is this mishmash, isn't it? That you've got the IOC who are kind of at the top of it.
Yeah.
You've got the host city. And to be a host city, you have to have government buy-in, you have to have regional buy-in, you have to have your city mayor buy-in, and all of those stakeholders and authorities. But then actually the games themselves, the qualification, the events are run by the IFs, the international federations. And then, continuing with all the acronyms, you've got the NGBs, the national governing body. So, what is another little layer on top of that big Olympic pudding, if you like?
Absolutely. Let's throw another one in. WTF. That's the biggest one with boxing. What the heck is going on? Talking of what the heck is going on, and that's me being polite. Russia to return for Paris 2024. I mean, you can imagine the headlines already, but according to reports, and this one was from the Inside the Games website, the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee Chair, Suzanne Lyons, has said in the last few weeks that the International Olympic Committee are discussing with national Olympic committees whether there's a pathway back for Russian athletes. In a statement, its guidelines for international federations to bar Russian and Belarusian athletes from events remain in place for the time being. But, quote, it wants to emphasise the role of sport as a unifying factor in today's much divided world. Now, we well know what happened with the Winter Olympics and Paralympics, that Putin went to Beijing, shook hands with the IOC president, Thomas Bach, and, of course, the Chinese president as well, and then just days later invaded Ukraine, just before the Paralympics. And we remember, and if you've listened to Michael's brilliant interview with Mike Sharrock in Great British Bosses, which came out last week on this feed of Anything But Footy, you would have heard just how much turmoil was going on in Beijing ahead of those Paralympics. As Mike told you, Michael, eventually the right decision was made. Why are the Olympics still thinking about trying to get Russian and Belarusian athletes into Paris 2024? I think you said to Mike Sharrock that the next 4 games are in locations where arguably there doesn't look quite as many issues that the Olympics could get question marked over, apart from the cost, which obviously happens in all locations. Why are they trying to create their own one for Paris?
Yeah, I mean, to play devil's advocate, the Paris Games are, just under 2 years away? So the geopolitical situation could be very different in 2 years. And again, to play devil's advocate, putting athletes first, which we've already mentioned once in this podcast in the first 5 or 6 minutes. They have always looked, haven't they, the IOC and other governing bodies, at ways and means of trying to get Russian athletes involved. Obviously, previously, the big debate has been over doping, over systematic doping, over state-sponsored doping, and there was always this movement, this motivation to try and get clean athletes, even if they were from Mother Russia, into the games. So I guess this is an extension of that, perhaps, that this is another way of saying, why should, athletes that were perhaps born in Russia or have previously represented Russia through no fault of their own, in that their government has invaded another country, why should they be able not to compete at the Olympic Games? That is me playing devil's advocate. If I was to be honest with you, I totally agree that now is not the time. Now is not the time to be talking about trying to bring Russian athletes back into the games. As I said there with Mike, we've got what looks to be, certainly from a Summer Games point of view, a nice little run now of safe options. We've got Paris, we've got Los Angeles, we've got Brisbane. We've obviously got Winter Games in Italy again, seemingly a safe option compared to where we've been before, which is the Korean Peninsula. And China, of course, last time in Beijing in 2022, earlier this year. You feel that all the drama and everything that the movement has been through with postponements and everything else, that they would just be quite happy just to keep their heads down for the moment. But those are the only reasons I can suggest why they perhaps are talking in this way at this point in time.
And if you allow me just to come back on the fact that you're putting athletes first, why, and this has only come out in the last few hours or so before recording this podcast, that Valieva, the young ice skater, you'll remember her well from Beijing. You spent quite a few days talking about her and her drugs test and the result of that, and the fact that she couldn't compete in Beijing. She apparently has been performing at events for Putin and the like. So these aren't athletes that are distancing themselves from a regime where we all know they have decided to invade another country. If I was Ukrainian, and frankly, I don't think it matters whether I was Ukrainian or not, if I was British, I would not want to be competing against a Russian because of that decision while the war is going on. And I agree with you, it feels totally the wrong time at the moment.
Coming up, our latest news from the Games on Anything But Footy. And is this the toughest sporting award of the year? They are trying to name the Scottish Athlete of the Year. Ailish McColgan, Laura Muir or Jake Whiteman. We're going to have our say in a moment. Hold your horses on that one. I've got some gymnastics to talk about. And I want to start with our friend Max Whitlock. After a year out, which saw him sat on the BBC sofa in Birmingham, took part memorably, of course, in the opening ceremony at the Alexander Stadium. Max has been posting pictures and he is now back in training and has confirmed that he's aiming for the next Olympic Games, as you've already heard. He's also been speaking honestly about his struggles since Tokyo, how stepping away from the sport made him feel and how that affected his mental health. And he's decided the best way forward for him is to get back into training and to try and win another Olympic medal. And I think the broader issue here, one, great to see Max back, and, we wish him well. We hope he's okay. And we hope that he's getting the support that he needs around him as he, begins this less than 2 year run into Paris now. And he won't be at the World Championships, which take place shortly in Liverpool, of course. But I think the more general point is perhaps we know we've underestimated how much pressure we put on some of our big name and elite athletes to perform. We've had that conversation before with Max now, with Adam Peaty, with others. But that year-long delay as well, having sort of come out of the implications of COVID and being taken out of, the setup and the system that you had around you, I think we probably underestimated just how difficult that was going to be for some of the big names and the top names in this country to do that cycle for not 4 but 5 years.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it's also incredibly hard to actually retire as a man in your 20s, or a woman, or an athlete in your 20s. And that would have been scary to have made that decision and then turn around and go, well, what actually... And we do know, because I spoke to him on this podcast, didn't I, about at the local leisure centre that he works with here in Hertfordshire. He's really keen at making sure that people are getting fit and the benefits of health, and that was clear. But that isn't necessarily going to take all of your time up once you finish in a career that was all-consuming. We remember Max from 2012. I mean, he was a kid in 2012, wasn't he? And that's the thing to remember.
What's next for someone like Max Whitlock? I mean, yes, he can go, as I said, sit on the BBC sofa. There might be, 2-3 weeks of gymnastics on BBC television every year, and then a bit more of a chunk of it during the Commonwealth Games and the Olympic Games. So, yeah, that will keep him a little bit occupied. He will be booked for events purely and simply because he's Max Whitlock.
Yep.
And a lot of people, a lot of retired athletes will go away and, do the speaking circuit, the motivational speaking circuit. I read a brilliant article, brilliant interview with Derek Redmond, who's probably most famous for not winning. But he's most famous for pulling up injured in the Olympics in 1992, and he did an interview with Riyadh in the Mail about how he's made a career as a motivational speaker. Everything he has is down to pulling up in that race and going and speaking to people about it. But you just feel, don't you, with Max, that there's something else there to give, and I mean that in terms of the sport before he wants to hang it up, and probably something else to give in that wider purpose that you talk about. Is there a role? Can he find a role in the way that someone like, off the top of my head, Chris Boardman has?
Yeah.
Do you know, an Olympic medalist, the best in the business at what he did in cycling, but has a very defined role now as an ambassador for getting people out walking, getting people out cycling, and trying to be involved in the creation of healthier and safer cities and things. But where is that role for one of our great ambassadors like Max Whitlock, and likewise people like Adam Peaty? How can we get the best from those people moving forward?
Yeah, because the success that we've had in the last 10 years, we're going to have a lot of these people who are coming to the end of their careers. Mo Farah being another one. We'll talk about him later on in the podcast. He can't quite give it up. And that's tough in itself. I remember having a conversation with Dame Catherine Granger about how she decided to retire after London, but then was like, no, actually, I've got unfinished business. And she came back to compete again in Rio, and that was the right thing for her to do. So it is individual, but I'm just so glad, as you said, that Max is talking about it. And he's not just saying, which is what he said in the articles that I've read as well, is I used to just say everything's okay, and I would lock it away. I'm just glad that he's not now, and that he can come out and say, yeah, I felt this. I felt like a failure, and I've want to come back, and we'll see what happens. And I think that is the most important thing in life, is that you can sit and you can talk to people about how you're feeling, and we need more of that with the athletes that we talk about on this podcast all the time. Michael, just quickly on the rest of gymnastics, we're a month away, as I mentioned, from the World Gymnastics Championships in Liverpool. It's been the centre of the political world in the last week. Could be the home of Eurovision, of course, next year as well. But it's the gymnastics. Liverpool lost out on Birmingham in the Commonwealth Games. They can't lose out to Glasgow in Eurovision next year, but we'll see. But they've got the gymnastics anyway. We're diverting slightly, although we do say anything but footy. The European and Commonwealth champions and European silver medalists have all been confirmed by British Gymnastics as the representatives for the men and women's teams for the World Championships in Liverpool this month. If you remember the glorious summer of multiple medals in Birmingham and Munich, you'll remember some of the names competing again, now against the world's best on home soil again. Alice Kinsella, Jennifer and Jessica Gadarova, George May Fenton and Odine Anchapong will be the all-one Euro silvers together in August. They will represent the British women. And Joe Fraser, Jake Jarman, Gianni Regini Moran, James Hall and Courtney Tulloch, who Michael has photos of all of them, will go for a third gold this year, having topped the podium at the Commonwealths and European Championships. I meant that in a nice way. He was celebrating.
You make me sound a bit creepy.
I didn't mean it like that. Action starts at the end of half term, which I think is a bit of a shame for a lot of people. The tournament actually starts at the end of our half terms. So it's the weekend of October 29th and 30th in Liverpool, although some people have an extra half term. Bit of a shame on the timing, particularly. But good luck, and there are still tickets available for the World Gymnastics Championships. Plenty of new faces and names behind the scenes as well. British Gymnastics CEO Sarah Powell putting together her team. David Hart has been confirmed as Performance Director of Strategy and Culture, working closely alongside leading coach Tracy Whittaker-Smith, who's the new PD of Olympic disciplines. Max Whitlock's longtime coach Scott Hann has a busy job on his hands now, as we've been talking the return of Max, but he's also accepted the new role of technical advisor for British Gymnastics, working with all national coaches. And as Chris Ferber told us from British Canoeing on Great British Bosses in an episode a couple of podcasts ago, he believes a new generation of athletes need to work with lots of different coaches. One size doesn't fit all, was his point. So good luck. It seems like British Gymnastics are moving in the right direction. Good luck to all of those appointments.
Yeah, talking of coaching appointments, there's been one at British Cycling as well recently. Cameron Mayer has been appointed the women's podium endurance coach. Australian cyclist who won 9 world titles and 3 Commonwealth Games track golds has a new position now in Manchester. And we talked about Great British Bosses, our series there. We had Stephen Park, the performance director from British Cycling, on Great British Bosses pre the Olympics in 2021, actually. And he told us something in that podcast that stuck with both of us, and that was that medals on the track are going to get harder to win as other countries, catch up in terms of the tech and the fact that the rules have changed as well, that British Cycling couldn't bring all their best stuff just when it really mattered at the Olympic Games. So he said to us, didn't he, look out for our cyclists in the other disciplines, things like BMX, and lo and behold, went to the Olympic Games and won a whole heap of BMX medals. So Beth Shriver, who was the Olympic champion, has been successful on 2 wheels recently. She won the World Cup gold in Bogota. And the other discipline, of course, that we're being told to look out is the mountain biking and also, of course, the road races. And I mentioned mountain biking because Tom Pidcock won the Olympic medal in the mountain biking, but also, as we know, Tom Pidcock could pretty much pick up any bike in any discipline and probably win a medal. And we've now got the same in women's cycling as well with Zoe Backstead. She now has 5 world junior titles in 4 different disciplines after becoming the world road racing champion at that level. She is going to be another absolutely huge star for British cycling. So, for people that were wondering where the next Jason Kenny's coming from, where the next Laura Kenny, Victoria Pendleton, who celebrated her birthday this week, incidentally, where they're coming from. I'll tell you where they're coming from. They're coming from mountain biking, they're coming from BMX biking, they're coming from road racing, as well as the track.
You heard it here first. Now, rowing had one of the worst Olympic regattas in Tokyo in living memory, but after the recent World Championships in Prague, I think we're declaring the Brits are back. Top of the medal table, 7 gold medals, 12 medals in total, and it feels like building on success of the World Cups and the European Championships earlier this summer, with Paris just 2 years away, as Michael mentioned. Now, this is virtually a brand new Olympic team, led by Louise Kingsley, the PD for Olympic and Paralympic rowers now, after her success in the Paras in Tokyo. And again, you can check out our Great British Bosses episode with her from Anything But Footy if you haven't. And she again said prioritising the athletes is a big part of her early success. There is a theme you may have noticed through this podcast, but also through British sport at the moment, and probably not a bad thing. So some of the highlights from the rowing. The men's 8 Olympic bronze medalists, of course. They ended their season unbeaten in 2022 with World Championship gold. They got their bows in front and never let the field come back. That's always a good way of winning a rowing race. The women's 4, men's 4 and lightweight women's double sculls all topped the podium as well. All of those are Olympic disciplines, of course. The para mixed cox 4 set a new world best time too, as they won gold, and they had the call "Do It for Erin" was made on the course in Prague, as the Tokyo winning cox Erin Kennedy is currently away from the boat receiving treatment for breast cancer. So well done to them. The men's quadruple sculls won silver behind Poland, while there was bronze medal success in the men's pair, women's quad sculls, Graham Thomas in the single sculls, and Ben Pritchard in the para single sculls. And all this comes because the season's not quite over yet. You might think the rowing season was over, but 9 boats will compete for Great Britain at the World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals in all places Wales later this month. It is October the 14th to the 16th, and double Olympic champion Helen Glover can't quite give it up. The 2-time gold medalist in the women's pairs will be returning to her Cornish roots and rowing on the waves in the women's single sculls. She'll be competing for Great Britain in those World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. And again, you can hear more on that on one of our Great British Bosses episodes with Ben Pritchard and Jack Beaumont. Well worth going back and listening. It is in a couple of weeks' time.
Now, we do have a big fan at British Rowing, and she tells us, I always listen to the podcast, but I always switch off once you've done the rowing bit. So don't switch off, because you've got London Marathon news to come, you've got athletics news to come, you've got a big name retirement in the world of taekwondo to come. We'll be talking basketball. But first up, let's talk baseball. I'm not sure we've talked baseball on the podcast before. Baseball, softball has been a sport that's been sort of in and out of the Olympics. It wasn't at London 2012. Regent's Park would have been the host, incidentally, for baseball if it had been on the programme for the London 2012 Games, but it was out. It was back in Tokyo, of course. And GB Baseball, well, are they potentially one day going to qualify for an Olympic Games? They have qualified for the Men's World Baseball Classic next year, which is essentially the World Cup of Baseball. They are the lowest ranked team in the tournament. It's the first time ever Great Britain have qualified. They beat Spain in their European qualifier to get there. And the Major League Baseball, the MLB, is coming to London and Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park as well. The 2023 London Series will feature the St. Louis Cardinals against the Chicago Cubs in June next year at the London Stadium. Remember, back in 2019, the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees previously played there. So, when we get the Olympic Games back to this country, we won't need to look at building a temporary venue at Regent's Park now. We can just convert one of those big old football stadiums for it, can't we?
We can. Talking of big years, British canoeing next year, staging the World Slalom Championships at Lee Valley. Training and competition for all nations has been taking place there last month in the so-called ranking races. And Tokyo Olympian Adam Burgess grabbed silver in the men's C1 class. Rio gold medalist Joe Clark a second place too in the K1. And there were 2 fourth place finishes for Olympic silver medalist in Tokyo, Mallory Franklin. Now, I managed to actually watch some of that qualifying for the extreme slalom events on a Sunday afternoon at Lee Valley. And I tell you, Michael, the way they start by coming down this ledge, literally it's a right angle drop and they go crashing into the water. It is incredible to watch, and of course extreme slalom will be part of the Olympics in Paris. It's going to be exciting. And talking of canoeing, you can check out the podcast we made for Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. Michael mentioned it there, My London Legacy, which the latest episode talks about the venues from 2012 and how British canoeing are using the aquatic centre for training during the winter months.
That is John's dedication to the craft. He spends his Sunday afternoons watching extreme canoeing live at the Lee Valley. Now, shooting, we have a quota place for Paris in the skeet shooting discipline. When I say we, I don't mean John and I mean Team GB. Amber Hill has secured that after winning gold at the European Shotgun Championships in Larnaca. Amber, you'll remember, should have gone to the last Olympics, but had to pull out at the last minute, having tested positive for COVID. She was a real strong medal hope as well. Nathan Hales has also secured another quota spot. He won a silver medal at the World Championships.
British Basketball have made a good decision in appointing Chris Grant, OBE, as the new chair. The former Sport England, London 2012 and Youth Sports Trust Board member comes with a wealth of experience and is passionate about achieving equality of access and opportunity for all. Frankly, though, he's got a huge job to do in the elite men's game in this country. After England won 3x3 Commonwealth gold, of course, in Birmingham, the British men came 24th out of 24 in the big Euro Basket 2022 rankings.
Taekwondo, and as we record, we are hearing confirmation of something that I think we already knew. Latalo Mohammed has announced his retirement from competitive Taekwondo. 2-time Olympic medalist. He did confide in this to us, didn't he, back at the London 2012 anniversary event. We were having a chat with him there. He was one of the special guests there. In fact, he presented the film that they showed on the night, looking back at London 2012, 10 years on. And he said that, he was pretty much finished with the sport. And we talked, didn't we, earlier about, athletes trying to find their place, trying to find their voice, trying to find their role post their competitive sport career. Lutalo has found a brilliant role, sat on the BBC sofa at the Olympic Games, commentating and presenting and analysing Taekwondo. But again, you have to think, what is the bigger picture for Latalo, who, clearly has a great future broadcasting career, if that is what he chooses to do. And going back to that event, John, where we saw him, you remember him telling us that, it was the combat sports, wasn't he? That he absolutely loved boxing, for example, all the kind of cage fighting and all that kind of UFC and MMA. That was what he wanted to do. So, with all the platforms now for those combat sports, you could certainly see Latalo Mohammed, his broadcasting career, as I said, if that's what he wants to do, if that's what he wants to pursue, and the experience that we've seen with him at the Olympics working for the BBC, there's nothing to suggest he couldn't make a brilliant transition from professional Taekwondo athlete to be the Gary Lineker or the Sue Barker of those sports. Absolutely has it on, has it in spades, doesn't he? I think to go ahead and do that. So we wish him well in his retirement from taekwondo, which has just been officially announced. Elsewhere in the sport, the Slovenia Open, golds for Bradley Sinden, silver medalist in Tokyo. Double Olympic champion Jade Jones and Rebecca McGarren also won a gold. Bradley also won a bronze at the World Taekwondo Grand Prix. So he's had a whole heap of medals, I think 5 in total during 2022. So all looking good for Bradley. He won that Grand Prix medal in Paris, incidentally, as he is on the road to the next Olympics in Paris.
And Eliud Kipchoge smashed his own marathon world record, clocking an incredible 2 hours, 1 minute and 9 seconds at the Berlin Marathon last month. He, of course, has run under 2 hours, over 26.2 miles, but that's not recognised as a worldie quite yet. The 4-time London Marathon winner was also in London at the weekend to hand out the mini marathon medals, which for the first time was held the day before the big race on Sunday. And Mo Farah pulled out just days before as well, citing injury. He will be 40 come the next London Marathon, which will be back in April, so April 2023. So we're going to get 2 London Marathons in the 6 months or so. Now, to finish with, pity the organisers of the Scotland Athlete of the Year annual awards. On the shortlist, Ailish McColgan, Laura Muir, Jake Whiteman, who all achieved huge success at the World Championships, Commonwealth Games and European Championships this summer. They have said, who would you pick? So we have to ask that question. And Michael, you're going to kick us off.
I would pick Jake Whiteman purely and simply because he became world champion. And, in the sport of athletics, getting to the top of the world is so tough. It's very close to winning an Olympic gold medal. So for me, Jake becoming world champion, if I was to pick the Scottish performance of the year, that would be Ailish McColgan at the Commonwealth Games, because I just think that performance in that final, was absolutely spellbinding. It was, for me, just the highlight of the Games. Just, such a privilege to have been in the stadium there that night. Ailish, for me, was probably the moment to remember from Scottish athletics this year, the performance of the year. But Jake Whiteman, purely and simply for becoming a world champion, would be my athlete of the year. You?
It's so weird because I really thought you would say Ailish because of the fact that you were there and that emotion and the tears and the fact that Liz was there as well and they hugged afterwards.
I did cry. You are right.
And you interviewed her as well in some tiny little room in the Alexander Stadium, and she is such a athlete who has come all the way up and up and up, hasn't she? I remember her in 2012, I think, running the steeplechase final, and because of her name, her famous name, that always had pressure on. But she's forged her own career. She won the Night of the 10Ks in 2019. She's now, as you say, Commonwealth champion, European medalist as well. And I really thought you were going to say that, and I thought we were going to have a row about who would be Scotland Athlete of the Year, but I've got to agree with you. And it's really unfair that we literally haven't mentioned Laura Muir either, because, again, what a performance from her to win those medals and defend her titles as well in the European Championships. But for me, Jake, the first British man since Steve Cram in 1983 to win the 1500 metres title. This isn't any race. This is the golden ribbon in athletics, isn't it? This is the event. If you're a British athletics fan growing up, the men's 1500 metres was what it was all about, wasn't it? With your Crams, your Coes, your Ovets. And for Jake to come and do that and win that at the Worlds and then come to the Commonwealths at a different event and win a medal, and then win a medal as well at the Europeans, when we all said how difficult this summer was going to be for British athletes, particularly those who were flying at a world level. And we've talked about it on previous podcasts. It hasn't worked out for some at different distances. But for me, I have to agree with you, Michael. I never thought I would sit here and you would have said Jake. But for me, Jake Whiteman is Scotland Athlete of the Year.
So quota places are being decided, prep camps have been booked, venues are being recceed as we speak. It is an unrelenting beast, the world of Olympic and Paralympic sport. The cycle never stops for our elite athletes. There's always another competition just around the corner. But Paris 2024 suddenly feels very real, and not just for us. Don't forget, you can always get in touch with us on Twitter at anythingbutf. You can drop us a message on Instagram or on Facebook. Find us online at anythingbutfooty.com. Drop us an email at anythingbutfooty@gmail.com. And just ask anyone with ambitions to wear the kit and be a part of the Olympic and the Paralympic Games.